The story begins in Barcelona, Spain, where we see a luxurious building. This building has a caretaker named César. César is always troubled. There's never any happiness on his face. He believes that ever since he was born, he has never truly felt happy. He suffers from a rare condition that prevents him from experiencing joy, no matter how good things get. But what makes it worse is that he can't stand seeing others happy either. It causes him pain. The next morning, César wakes up, and beside him lies a woman. After getting ready, he heads down to the lobby, where he works at the reception desk. One of the residents, a woman, approaches César and tells him that she has to attend a party that night. She asks if he could feed her dog while she's away. César always speaks kindly to everyone. He's well liked by the people around him. With a polite smile, he agrees. The woman is delighted and tells him that she has made something for him. It's a pie, specially baked for him. Later that night, César goes to her apartment, but instead of simply feeding the dog, he deliberately gives it food that makes it sick. The next morning, the woman returns to César distressed. With tears in her eyes, she tells him that her dog has fallen terribly ill. César remains silent because this is exactly what he wanted. After this, César visits the hospital to see his mother, who is gravely ill. She cannot speak, but she can still hear him. César confesses everything to her, how he enjoys torturing people. Hearing this, his mother is deeply pained, but she has no way to tell anyone. Meanwhile, we're introduced to a woman named Clara, who lives in the same building where César works. She enters her apartment and begins checking her mail. After briefly going through the letters, she tears them up and throws them away. What she doesn't know is that César is hiding under her bed. Unaware of his presence, Clara starts her nighttime skincare routine and then goes to bed. But César had already tampered with her skincare products. He had mixed chloroform into them. As a result, Clara loses consciousness. She is the same woman we saw earlier in the story, the one lying next to César when he woke up. The horrifying truth is that every night, César sneaks into her room and deliberately mixes chloroform into her food and skincare products. This causes her to pass out, allowing him to take advantage of her vulnerability. Then, at exactly 5 o'clock in the morning, César leaves Clara's apartment before she wakes up. Right across from Clara's apartment lives another tenant, a woman who has a young daughter. She has seen César sneaking out of Clara's room multiple times before. In fact, she knows everything about him. That's why she starts blackmailing César. To keep her quiet, César gives her money and quickly leaves. César has only been working in this building for a month, yet from his very first day on the job, he has been doing all of this to Clara. A little while later, Clara wakes up. Because of the drugged products she unknowingly uses every night, she always feels exhausted in the mornings. Still, she gets ready for work. As she steps out of the building, César, as always, greets her with a polite, "How are you?" Smiling brightly, Clara responds, "I'm good." But seeing her happy only fuels César's rage. No matter what, he wants to see Clara suffer. To torment her further, he starts sending her disturbing anonymous messages from a different phone. He even writes creepy love letters, hoping to unsettle her. Eventually, Clara has had enough. She reports everything to the police, asking them to investigate who has been sending her these messages. Meanwhile, César sneaks into Clara's apartment while she is away. He tampers with her lotion, mixing in a substance that triggers an allergic reaction on her face. Although Clara is visibly bothered by the irritation, she still smiles and interacts kindly with everyone around her. It's simply in her nature to stay positive. But this only infuriates César even more. No matter what, he is determined to see Clara suffer. In his obsession, he takes things further. One night, while she is fast asleep, he releases dozens of cockroaches into her room. The next morning, Clara wakes up to find her apartment infested with cockroaches. Terrified, she rushes out of her flat and immediately informs César. Panicked, she tells him, "There are so many cockroaches in my apartment. Please get it cleaned while I go stay at my mom's place for a few days." With that, Clara leaves for her mother's house. César arranges for her apartment to be cleaned, but the next day, the police arrive at the building. Clara had filed a complaint, reporting that someone had been sending her disturbing anonymous messages. The police have already traced the source of the messages back to the building. They begin searching the premises, determined to find the culprit. But before they can reach him, César acts quickly. Using his cunning, he plants the phone in the belongings of a housekeeper's young son. César has always despised the boy, as the child often creates a mess while his mother cleans the building. Soon enough, the police find the phone. Without hesitation, they arrest the housekeeper and her son, taking them into custody. César watches as they are taken away, successfully escaping suspicion once again. The next day, Clara returns to her apartment, but this time, she is not alone. Her boyfriend is with her. He has returned after a long time, but César is completely unaware of this. As usual, César is hiding under Clara's bed, where he has also stashed a bottle of chloroform. However, by accident, a few drops of the chloroform spill onto his face. The strong fumes make him dizzy, forcing him to rush to the bathroom. Before he can do anything, he loses consciousness. The next morning, César finally regains consciousness. As he slowly gathers himself, he hears laughter coming from the kitchen. Clara and her boyfriend are enjoying their morning together. Realizing he has to escape before they notice him, César cautiously tries to slip out of the apartment, but just as he is about to leave, Clara's boyfriend spots him. Surprised, he asks, "What are you doing here?" César panics. Moments later, Clara also walks into the room. Thinking quickly, César comes up with an excuse. He tells her, "I was here to get rid of the cockroaches, but I accidentally left some of my belongings behind. I just came to retrieve them." Clara believes him, especially when she sees that some of his things are indeed still in the apartment. She hands them over to him, and with that, César cleverly escapes without raising further suspicion. Meanwhile, the little girl from the neighboring apartment, the same one who has been blackmailing César, continues to take advantage of him. She frequently demands money from him and even asks him to buy her things she desires. César has no choice but to fulfill every one of her demands. If she ever decides to expose him, he knows he will be caught. A few days pass and Clara discovers that she is pregnant. While she remains calm about the news, her boyfriend reacts with anger. He has only been back for 4 days, yet the baby growing inside Clara is already 4 weeks old. This means she has been pregnant for an entire month, far longer than he has been around. Clara, however, is absolutely certain that the baby is his. Meanwhile, César is hidden under the bed, silently listening to the entire argument. But unlike Clara, he knows the horrifying truth. The baby is actually his. Clara has no idea. Later that night, César ensures his escape. He secretly drugs both Clara and her boyfriend, rendering them unconscious before slipping out of the apartment. The next morning, Clara leaves for work as usual. While she is gone, her boyfriend starts cleaning the apartment. That's when he stumbles upon a bottle of chloroform hidden under the bed. Immediately, he realizes the terrifying truth. César had been in their apartment all along. Since César has access to every flat in the building, it becomes painfully clear that he is the one responsible for what happened to Clara. Clara's boyfriend calls César over and confronts him. "I know everything about you," he says, his voice filled with rage. "You're going to pay for what you did to Clara." A violent fight breaks out between them. In a ruthless attack, César overpowers Clara's boyfriend and kills him. After committing the murder, César meticulously wipes away all fingerprints and evidence from the apartment before making his escape. A while later, the police arrive and begin their investigation. But despite their efforts, they find no evidence that could link anyone to the crime. Clara is completely shattered by her boyfriend's death. Grief consumes her. Meanwhile, the little girl from the neighboring apartment, the one who has seen César sneaking in and out of Clara's flat multiple times, holds a dangerous secret. She knows exactly what César has been doing. She could go to the police and expose the horrific truth, but driven by greed, she chooses to stay silent. Soon, Clara's mother arrives and takes her away, hoping to help her daughter recover from the tragedy. Watching all of this unfold, César finally feels a twisted sense of peace. For the first time, he is truly satisfied, because this is exactly what he wanted from the beginning. Clara is now completely broken, and for César, that is his ultimate victory. César has become more disturbed than ever. Unable to take any risks, he sneaks into the apartment of the little girl, the one who knows everything about him. With a menacing glare, he warns her, "If you ever think about telling anyone, I will kill you and your entire family." Terrified, the girl stays silent. Months pass. We now see Clara at the beach, living what seems to be a peaceful life. She has become a mother and holds her newborn child in her arms. She truly believes that this is her boyfriend's child. Accepting it as her fate, she chooses to embrace this life and finds happiness in it. But then, one day, she receives a letter in the mail. It's from César. In the letter, he confesses everything. He details everything he did to her, all the horrors she never knew about, but most disturbingly, he tells her the truth about her child. "The baby you're holding is mine," he writes. "Every time you look at your child, you will see my face in him, and that is my greatest joy." He ends the letter with chilling words. "For the first time in my life, I am truly happy, and it's all because of you. Thank you. As Clara reads the letter, the devastating truth crushes her. She stares at her baby, an expression of shock and despair washing over her face. But after a long, painful moment, she finally pulls the child into her arms and hugs him tightly. And with that, the story comes to an end.